What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I've been here for 19 years, going on 20, and last week I made a reaction video to Jimmy Kimmel and Ben Shapiro, going back and forth about whether Japan is a good place or not. Jimmy Kimmel told some exaggeration jokes, and Ben Shapiro pushed back because how dare you say any place is better than the United States of America. And I addressed it basically saying they're both wrong about a bunch of things. If you want to check out that video, I'll link it below. But I thought that for this week, because I had a few negative things to say about Japan last week, I thought I would actually take Jimmy Kimmel's slant and give you today 5 reasons why I think Japan is a better place to live than the United States of America. Now, I strive for balance on this channel, so my plan is next week I'm going to release the opposite, which is, I don't know if it's going to be 5 reasons, but it'll be reasons why the United States of America is a better place to live than Japan. The first one I'm going to talk about is how in Japan, Japanese people take their work very seriously, whether it's a part-time job or full-time work or everything in between. Everyone takes what they do seriously. They try to do their best, they do it to the best of their ability, and this manifests in a number of ways. For example, the famous customer service in Japan is because of this. People taking their job seriously and giving basically their full attention to what they're supposed to be doing. It always strikes me when I go to other countries, including the US, all the people who are on their phones while they're, a clerk in a store, or they're supposed to be doing something else, but they're on their phones. And I always feel like, am I interrupting you if I ask you a question? No one is ever on their phone while they're at work in Japan. That's just not going on, because Japanese are going to be focusing, this is work, this is what I'm here to do. I'm not going to be sitting in my booth of goods to sell. So even the souvenir sellers at the tourist spots are not sitting on their phone when they don't have customers. That level of attention and care for what they're doing is really a good thing, in my opinion. If I ask for something in a large sporting goods store, for example, like where can I find the baseball gloves or whatever it might be, the clerk is going to physically lead me to the place in the store where they are. Now, in America, they're going to say, oh, it's over in aisle 8 at best, or at worst, they're going to say, oh, it's kind of over in the back corner over there. And you're left to your own devices to continue your search. It's something that I greatly appreciate, and something that I feel I feel comfortable in a society that works like this. The next thing I would mention as a reason why I really like living in Japan is it's a place where you can just go out to eat and not spend a whole ton of money, and you're always going to have a good experience. Like I said, I've been here for 19 years, and I have exactly one restaurant in all of those years of experience that I would say I'd never go back to because the food was inferior or just not good. There's always a certain level of quality that you're going to expect at pretty much any restaurant in Japan. And I just said at pretty much any restaurant. Any restaurant is a better way to put that. There's just this expectation that you're going to get a certain level of quality when it comes to the food. And you're not going to have a bad meal. It might not be a spectacular meal, but you're not going to have a bad experience. And while this is all going on, you end up paying way less for food going out than you would in the States. If you go out in the States, every time I've gone back, I've been shocked after tax and tip how much everything costs. I can take my family, my wife and kid, to a place for dinner, not a chain store, family restaurant or anything, but a proper sit-down restaurant, and we will have paid less than 2,000 yen a person. So that's $10 to $15 per person, all in, right? Everything included. And so good luck having a night out. You can't even do that at McDonald's in America these days. So you're going to pay not a lot of money, and you're going to get a very steady, expected level of quality. And I think this goes back to that people taking their job seriously. Even if it's just a part-time restaurant chef in the kitchen, they're taking what they're doing very seriously. They are taking into account that they have customers that they want to please and want to have a good time. There's a conscientiousness involved there, and it's, yeah, that seriousness that people take their work is what leads in part to that quality expectation that is met time and time again. All right, the third thing I would mention as a reason why I personally think Japan is a wonderful place to live, that is, people leave you alone. People don't get into your business. People mind their own business in Japan. Even as someone who's visibly foreign, people don't hassle me or try to talk to me on the streets. I've walked around with this camera doing these walk and talks, and I can think of one occasion where someone stopped and talked to me and wanted to know what I was about. For the most part, people are just minding their own business and not trying to hassle you in any way, shape, or form. I feel like in America, you're going to run into people who start up, they're going to ask you about something you're doing, or you have homeless people who are going to try to panhandle for money from you. You've got people who might be on drugs who are going to be just like harassing random people on public transportation and the like. And that just doesn't happen in Japan. You can go through your life here. I mean, if you're an introvert, it's kind of a dream country for you, because you can go through your daily life and routine here and not have to deal with people if you don't want to. Even in shops, the interactions between you and the shop clerk is always this kind of professional, just enough to make the transaction happen. They're not trying to ask you, oh, I see you're buying this, that, and the other thing. You having a party or something? No, maybe you like that kind of small talk, I don't know. But in my case, it's kind of nice to be able to go through life and know you're not going to be hassled about anything. And especially when I think of how polarized the States has become politically, especially if you wear certain things or do certain things in public, you might get comments by people who think you're, too right-wing or left-wing or something like that. The example I would give was my poor friend Josh, who was returning to the States from Japan, and he was transferring through Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, and he was wearing a mask. He was coming from Japan where everyone was still wearing masks. And he had this random guy in the airport confront him and basically chew him out and call him a sheeple. And it's like, mind your own business. How is my friend Josh wearing a mask any business of anyone else's that you feel the need you have to harass them over? You're not going to face harassment like that in Japan. And so safety statistics and everything else, I'm not talking about that. All that aside, you just feel safer and more peaceful on the streets because people are going to leave you alone. Now, the fourth thing I would bring up is probably one of the themes that is well known about Japan, but kind of ties together all the things I've already talked about, and that is the desire for harmony. Japan is a country that greatly desires harmony, peaceful daily life, and that just makes people very conscientious and caring about what others are doing, what others are thinking, and so you act and speak accordingly to try to be polite, to try to be self-deprecating, to try to make smooth relationships. You bottle up your political leanings or things that irritate you because you just want everything to be peaceful and for everyone to get along. Now, that is a societal value, and obviously there are a lot of positive things about that. I will say that next week, when I talk about why the US is better, there might be some flip sides, or I might point out some dark sides to some of the things I am talking about today. Because as with anything, there's no perfect solutions. There's always trade-offs. So conscientiousness and being serious can, of course, flip to the negative in certain circumstances. But for today's positive outlook, I would say on the greater whole, the fact that the Japanese are so conscientious and desire to have a peaceful society, a society that works together, is one of the really biggest graces of this country, and one reason why I definitely love living here. If you're someone who naturally kind of goes against the grain, it might be kind of tough to live in Japan. And the final one feels maybe perhaps a little bit cliche, And it's one that a lot of people mention when they talk about Japan, but it's definitely a thing that healthcare is really a big plus about living in Japan. Yes, you pay every month out of your salary into the national healthcare system, so it's not like it's free. You're paying insurance up front, but you have coverage, and the coverage is very nice, and the prices, everything is so cheap. I just, the examples I would give are, I have a kid, and up through elementary school, you go to a clinic, and basically everything is free. So every time I come out of the clinic, whether it's for vaccinations or the kid caught influenza or whatever it might be, you never pay anything. There's no money involved. Even dentist appointments. And I go to get a dentist cleaning, right? It's free. Or a few hundred yen. Free for the kid. Basically, it's so cheap to get healthcare in Japan, and it's very high quality. It's not perfect. It suffers from the same thing that Japan is going to be suffering from in general, which is the aging population and not enough people paying into the system anymore. So some things are probably going to have to change. And one of the benefits of the American system is you really get the most cutting edge technology and treatments, etc. in the US. But in terms of just being covered and not ever having to worry about being bankrupted by a medical emergency, it's hard to beat living in Japan. It really is a good healthcare system, and it's nice not having to think about it. Now, I know healthcare is a huge debate in the States. I know that healthcare isn't perfect anywhere in the world, and Japan is no exception. But yeah, not having to pay a ridiculous amount of money. Someone has a crow repellent siren back there. We have one of those in our garden too, actually, to scare away crows and cats and that kind of thing. But anyway, yeah, healthcare in Japan is definitely a huge bonus to have. If you're an American, you're used to paying huge premiums, and if you are out of network and you end up paying all this extra money, well, there's no out of network in Japan. You're good to go anywhere you are in the country. All right, so those are 5 things that make Japan a better place for me to live than the United States of America. Let me know in the comments what you think about my choices. Do you live in Japan, and do you have anything to add? Is there anything that you would push back against, like I pushed back against Jimmy Kimmel and Ben Shapiro? By all means, go ahead and let us know in the comments. I appreciate the fact that you took the time to watch this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't done any of those good things already. And I'll catch you next week for the reasons why the US is a better place to live than Japan. See you then. Peace.